Okay, and how's the audio? Can people hear me clearly? Okay, great. Thank you very much. I will call the meeting to order. This is the regular scheduled council meeting of Monday, February the 8th. As I call the meeting to order, I just want to acknowledge that the lands in which we're all gathered is the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, and their connections to these lands continue to this day. First up, we just have approval of the agenda. If we can get a mover and a seconder for the agenda. Moved and seconded, thank you. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And if I call the vote and I make a mistake, by all means, just hit your mute button or wave frantically, and I'll make sure I stop and get back to you. Next up, we just have adoption of minutes and reports. We have one regular and two special council meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve these, and then we can make any changes or corrections to them? Go ahead. Moved by Councillor Braithwaite. Is there a second? Or thank you, Councillor Zelka. Any corrections, changes, amendments? Not seeing any. Okay, I will call the question. Then all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That passes. Next, we have a Ryzen Report. This is just released from the in-camera meeting of July 20th, 2020. That was a long time ago. If someone could just move to rise. Ms. Williams, this is the first time we've done one of these in this format. Do you want us to read this aloud, or just to, is that the appropriate process here?
Yes, Your Worship. If you could read it into the open meeting, that would be good.
Okay, someone could just read this into the record. We're not voting on this. This is just for the record.
I'll move that Council refer the application of Christine Hall to the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General for approval as Council's appointee to the Oak Bay Police Board.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. And for those watching, this is a start of a process, the end of a process that we started back in February of last year, and has finally finished its completion at Order in Council at the province. So that appointment was made by the province just about a week and a half ago. Tonight, I don't really have anything in the way of remarks. I just really appreciate everybody continuing the hard work that goes on despite pandemics and despite all the challenges facing us. Looking forward to a meeting here. I was thinking this is the first time we've just had a regular 7 o'clock start, regular council meeting without ancillary meetings or anything else in a long time. So nice to see you all at 7 o'clock and dealing with really normal council type business. Next, item number 6.1, we have a presentation from the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. We have Bruce Williams joining us, and we have up to 10 minutes for Mr. Williams to address us. Welcome, Mr. Williams, and it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Council. It's nice to be back. Someday we'll do this in person. I can hardly wait for that, really. I'd like to join you in acknowledging that I actually live and work in the traditional territories and the ancestral grounds of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish nations, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. We live in what is now known as View Royal. Someday it might be Oak Bay. Who knows? I'm making this presentation from the perspective of our chamber being the regional chamber of commerce. There are some smaller chambers, of course, throughout the region, but we are the one that represents this region. Within our chamber membership, we have about 80 plus members that consider themselves to be Oak Bay businesses. And I'm seeking support of council for membership for the municipality and for the district as a bit of a sign of solidarity and support for those members, just as other municipalities have done. So far in our membership, we include Victoria, Saanich, View Royal, Esquimalt, Colwood, and Langford, who have done this to show support for their own businesses and taxpayers. And I'm suggesting that maybe we can chat about Oak Bay doing the same thing. The CRD is also a part of our chamber. We would, through that, be adding your voice to the advocacy that we do on behalf of business across the region with the federal and provincial governments. And at the same time, we would be in a position to support advocacy that you are undertaking on behalf of your own Oak Bay businesses and residences. I can quickly, if the page is available, show you some of the things that we're considering to be our advocacy priorities right now. Ms. Williams, I think that was sent previously, and if that can come up, I can walk council a little bit through the items that we are currently considering our priorities for advocacy. The largest factor about a year ago from now would have been finding and keeping workers, because any business or organization had a problem sourcing and retaining workforce. The largest undertaking we've had over the last many months is helping our members understand what exactly government support for recovery means, all the different means of of relief and aid that have been put forward for rent and for salaries and that sort of thing, for wage subsidies. We're going to be dealing with that as far as education and skills are concerned, to upskill the workforce too, as we move into our recovery, as our economy bounces forward. We're going to be placing a priority on helping those involved with tourism and hospitality. We will be working directly with Indigenous organizations and businesses to help them grow. We're going to be working on issues of childcare, getting people back to work, immigration and integration of those workers into the workforce. Again, immigration, a huge source of workforce for us previous to COVID, and it will be going forward. Among the things that we're working for and advocating for right now is an accelerated recognition of credentials, that when someone arrives here as an immigrant with their skills, that they be recognized possibly even before landing in Canada, so that they can get to work right away. So that's a liaison between the associations, the guilds, if you will, within the province, once the people have made their way in. So we'll have a whole bunch of pent-up demand for all of that. A safe community has always been a priority for this chamber. We've seen that somewhat exacerbated over the last many months. Both the human health of all people related to COVID and to those who have been displaced from the economy and their homes, and those who find themselves living on the streets or in transitional housing right now. So we will be working, of course, with all possible agencies on seeking homeless solutions. We've had some liaison with the provincial government already, which was a part of creating the announcement that came out last week about 5 pilot facilities being created across the province to help deal with addictions and mental health. And that's something, excuse me, that we will continue to be doing. We're working on the affordable housing piece. We have a meeting with our members coming up with Minister Eby about that shortly. We're going to be looking into oversight of all of those things, advocacy for mental health supports. And also another thing that we're looking at right now is as the advent of technology progresses, especially the arrival of 5G and that network, so that access is available to all businesses to have an equal chance to succeed and use that in order to grow their businesses. We, of course, will be putting great attention to climate change solutions and all industry and business opportunities surrounding that. Talking about things like accessible childcare, which was an issue before COVID and will be an issue after COVID, and the whole situation around transportation options across the region. Workforce is a little bit different with the number of people doing just as we're doing. So traffic patterns have changed, but it's an opportunity for us to take a look at ways that we can streamline all of the opportunities that we have to move people throughout the region. Something else that's become an issue that was there before, but sort of came to the forefront as well during COVID, is the food sovereignty of this region. So we need to take a look at ways that we can become more food sufficient, that we rely less on imported food. It's a lower carbon footprint, of course, but it also provides jobs here, which currently are jobs elsewhere that we are supporting by buying and importing products from other places. So the concept of urban agriculture is something that we're very strongly advocating for, because we feel that's a way to benefit us in so many ways. Oh, thank you. There's the thought sheet, or the thought bubbles, if you will, for the things that we find are all consolidated together in what we're doing right now with our priorities going forward through 2021. And that's really kind of where I'm at here. The number I'm not clear on. You're going to know about the budgetary number. Mr. Mayor, what's the employee total for the District of Oak Bay? How many employees do you have?
It depends a lot on how you count it, Bruce. Mr. Williams. There's the core employees in the hall itself. There's the extended with Parks and Rec and other departments, and of course we have a very large auxiliary staff that comes up every summer, in particular with both our recreation camps and our parks maintenance. So it really does depend on how you're going to count it, and so that would have an impact on what the cost would be.
Right, so full-time. I think the seasonal ones we wouldn't count in this because they aren't really a part of your ongoing core operation. So chamber memberships, the fees are based on the size of employee base. So if we went with a full-time number, how many would that be?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
I think it's around 200, but I could be a little off on that number.
Okay, so the classification for 200 to 300 employees, your yearly fee would be $2,530 plus tax. A number of our members, of course, are engaged with the chamber because we make it possible for them to have affordable health benefits for their employees, something that they may not be able to access otherwise. In addition to being an organization that has actually the majority of our members outside of the city of Victoria, because we are the regional chamber, about 85% of chamber members are companies of 10 employees or less. So we really do represent the core and the backbone of small business, which is the backbone of any economy. But we, of course, have large members too that are employers into the hundreds and hundreds of employees. So we have a really good cross-section of the region, and we would very much appreciate the district's consideration of becoming a member of our chamber to become part of that mix. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Are there any questions of Mr. Williams on the Chamber of Commerce? Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Williams, can you perhaps just touch on some of the events that you have in regards to the speakers that you bring into the chamber? Because I know in the past I've attended some great luncheons and things like that where some of the speakers are any people from the Premier to the chair or the CEO of BC Ferries. So perhaps you can just touch on that.
Thank you for the question, and through the mayor, yes, we have some sessions coming up shortly. 3 of them were planned in the next month with senior ministers of the province. We will be having something with the Premier, but we're going to wait until we can do that in person. That's something that we would like to gather together and do that. Ministers Eby, Fleming, and Callan are going to be meeting with our members over the next 3 to 4 weeks. After that, we have other meetings planned with other members of cabinet with portfolios that align with the priorities that we have. Included in that is mental health and addictions, family services, and municipal relations, probably agriculture as well. And we will, of course, continue with what we do with meetings around private business leaders as well, as you mentioned, BC Ferries, and a number of others too. So we have those on an ongoing basis, a little less frequently during COVID, and we've been doing them online, but we will continue to do that, which is a chance for our members to liaise with those business leaders and hear what their mission is and where they're going. So those will continue, and I'm very hopeful of it being in person sooner than later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other questions, Councillor? I just have Councillor Green. You're still muted, Councillor Green.
I'm going to get T-shirts made up that say you're on mute.
Yeah.
And sell them money for charity.
I'm sorry. Thanks for being here, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, as council liaison to the local BIA and also to the tourism committee, can you describe just briefly some of the kinds of supports you could provide to local communities in that regard? I'm thinking especially of recovery activities for both of those. They've been, as you know, hit pretty hard, and our community is smaller, so slightly harder perhaps. So any comments you have or ideas would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And again, through the mayor, I did a podcast last week actually, and included a board member from your BIA in that when we were talking about the changing nature of retail and how that's been shifting to online as much as in person, how many retailers are right now doing business by appointment, which actually they don't mind. It's a little less of a free-for-all when that happens. So it's a little bit more coordinated and you can plan your day a little bit better. Tourism, of course, the whole industry, the sector across the country has been walloped by all of this. I serve on some committees and I'm working every day with Destination Greater Victoria, pass the message along about what the opportunities are within tourism. As a member of the chamber, any messaging that the district would have, whether it be your BIA or tourism, would be amplified through the chamber channels. We would be more than happy to be a part of helping you amplify those messages out to our greater membership, as well as through media and other business stakeholders we have. So yeah, part of what you get as a chamber member is the opportunity to brag on yourself and push your messaging out and remind people of what you do and what services are available in your particular jurisdiction. And we'd be very anxious to do that. It's a part of, again, showing the diversity that we have within this region of the particular type of retail that the Avenue in Oak Bay offers. And Oak Bay Beach Hotel, Oak Bay Marine Group are members of our chamber, and helping put their messages out to the greater membership too. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I have Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. You can hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's great. This question would be possibly through to staff first. Back on February the 10th of 2020, we had a staff report coming back based on a presentation from the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, asking for staff to report out on, I guess, the value proposition specifically to Oak Bay. Unfortunately, I cannot find the minutes of that meeting. I see that there was a motion but I can't find the output of it. I was wondering if staff could possibly help me understand what we may have already voted on with respect to Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Zelka. And I'm wondering who on the call here might have been here when that when the motion was made. But I'll go to Councillor Braithwaite afterwards, probably just for a refresher. But Ms. Varela, are you able to address the question? I believe it was to come back with information on the potential sort of specific value adds that would be a benefit to the municipality.
Your Worship, I apologize. I don't have that report at my fingertips, but I do believe we were going to go away and do a bit of a calculation. There was some discussion about were auxiliaries in or out. I think there was a bit of work that was done, so I will follow up with that report and the status. Thank you, Councillor Zelka.
And Councillor Braithwaite, can you just clarify as well?
Yeah, it was based on the information on our auxiliary members or our full-time members, and then we came to the conclusion that it was full-time. So that was how we were able to come up with the dollar value. But then the other thing that we were looking into, and I believe Mr. Payne was looking into this and did come back with an answer, was in regards to credit card costs. So there is through the chamber an opportunity to reduce your credit card costs depending on the volume, et cetera, of credit card charges that go through your organization. I think for the municipality, I think it was from what I remember from Mr. Payne coming back with, and he could correct me if I'm wrong, it was basically almost the same what we already get for our credit card costs
Yes.
as compared to what the chamber could offer, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
go ahead, Mr. Williams. Yeah.
Yes, there are other member benefits if that's something that's of interest to the district through suppliers of office supplies and things like that that are available to the district as a chamber member. Right. I don't have those at my fingertips. I apologize, but
it's okay. I think when we went through that, there was a couple that came out that might have had a very specific. I mean, obviously, as a public entity, we have very specific purchasing agreements and requirements and RFP processes that we have to follow that are a bit different than most of the members. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite and Ms. Varela. Are there any? I don't see any other hands up at this time. I do appreciate Councillor Zelka. You still have your hand up. Did you wish to add anything? No, we're good. Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate if you can use the electronic hand up. That's a little easier for me to see than the hands waving, but I'll take either. Okay, thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else. Mr. Williams, anything you wish to add before we wish you good evening?
Something we always do at the AGM is have a roundtable of the mayors to have a fulsome conversation on regional issues. And I would love to have the voice of Oak Bay in that session when it happens. As I mentioned, we've actually grown the municipal membership in the time that I've been here to include Esquimalt, View Royal, Colwood, and Langford, along with Saanich and Victoria. And having Oak Bay's voice in that one particular event would be something that I think would be of value to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
I don't see anything else with this. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Unless there's any motions arising. Oh, I see a couple of hands coming up here in the order on my screen. Councillor Braithwaite, then Councillor Green.
I think they were waving goodbye to me because I was waving goodbye to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, what I would like to, would it be appropriate at this time to request that this might be considered in the provisional budget? I could make a motion to that effect.
Yeah, we would debate the inclusion really in the budgeting process if that was the case.
Right. Okay.
To put that, so that would be. So I just want to make sure I've got that right, if you don't mind, before I take the motion. Ms. Williams, I'll just ask you, if a motion is made here to add something to the provisional budget, would that come back for us in the financial planning process to consider, or would that? I just want to make sure that we don't kind of have it lost if that's the process.
Yes, Your Worship. If you'd like that included for consideration, then a motion. That membership in the Chamber of Commerce be included in the provisional budget for Council's consideration would be in order. Okay, and that wouldn't be in Thursdays, I guess, because that's already been published, or would that be a minor amendment to that one? I'm just thinking it's top of mind right now. Oh, we'll see what we can do on that. I won't put you on the spot for that one. We'll just make it a general motion. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite. If
so I would make the motion as per Ms. Williams' verbiage.
I'll second it.
To be included in the provisional budget for discussion at financial planning. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Just for my clarification, will we get an exact number then for that discussion? Can we have that number in time for the provisional budget as well? I see Mr. Williams nodding, so we'll say yes.
Yes.
We'll definitely
Yeah,
do that. Great.
Yeah, if Ms. Williams could send me the number of employees, then I will
We'll
I'll
get the
send
exact
the number
number
back to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. So that was moved and seconded. Councillor Zelka?
Thank you very much. If it's possible to also have the staff reports and information that was also done a year ago, presented at that time in the budgeting cycle, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe we can, sure, that would be fine. We can maybe circulate that just to make sure everybody has it. Sorry, Councillor Braithwaite, I didn't let you motivate on your motion.
Oh,
So I'll
that's
look
okay.
ahead.
I was just going to say that perhaps also we can, from Mr. Williams, get an electronic package of exactly what chamber membership is and includes.
Yes, absolutely. That will happen.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
get that to you tomorrow, actually.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zelka, anything else? Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Councillor Green.
Yes, I will support the motion. I think depending on what happens in terms of budget and financial plan, it seems to me that there will be some advantages for our community, and particularly for our small business community, small business owners, and tourism. So I will support the motion on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I don't see any other hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. So that will come back to our financial planning process, Mr. Williams. And of course, if that does pass, we will certainly let you know. And I'm sure we'll reach out either way to give you a heads up in terms of where that's sitting at. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for coming tonight. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Anything else on this agenda item before I run away? No. Okay. So item number 7.1, we have a Manager of Recreation and Culture, Arts Laureate's annual report. These are reports really for information for receipt, but Mr. Meikle, I believe, is here to join us and to provide a brief overview and to answer any questions.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. So as per the terms of reference for the Arts Laureate, the annual 2020 Annual Arts Alive report is presented here for your information. First off, I think it's important to note this is the final report of the outgoing Arts Laureate, Barbara Adams, and just wish to highlight the great work done over, I believe, 7 years in that role, which included the startup of the public sculpture displays, the Arts Live program, the art pianos, and many other events which help fulfill that primary mandate in raising the profile of the arts in the district.
Mr. Meikle,
yes,
sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to ask Ms. Williams, can you put up this is in this section, the public can call in to comment if they wish. So maybe I'll just ask if you can put up the screen with the dial-in information and the ways of raising your hand. If anybody at home is watching on Zoom, if you go to the reactions tab at the bottom, you can choose raise hand there as well, and that will also alert our staff that you wish to speak. So, Ms. Williams, can you put up the phone number information? There we go. The screen with it. And so thank you for that. And I apologize for interrupting, Mr. Meikle. I don't know if anybody's going to call in or not, but it's always good to give people a bit of a heads up and some time to do so. At the bottom, you can choose raised hand there as well, and that will also alert our staff that you wish to speak. Can you turn off? Ms. Williams, can you put up the phone number? Someone has the streaming going in the background, and it's. Oh, that was Mr. Whitney. Okay, there we go. Mr. Meikle, you're back on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and to you, through you to Council there. So it was just mentioning the work done over 7 years by the Arts Laureate and the Public Arts Advisory Committee, and despite some challenges associated with the pandemic in 2020, they did manage to carry on with this great work, and that included 10 new sculptures on display in the community as of August 2020. And also a display of COVID art hearts, which were painted by local artists and displayed throughout the community during the summer of 2020. So on top of the uncertainty created by the pandemic, we're also in a time of transition of membership on the Public Arts Advisory Committee and for the Arts Laureate position, as Council will be aware. The attached staff report was provided some clarification on the status of several items in the 2020 Arts Alive report, given the impact of the pandemic and this committee transition. So for example, as moved by Council at the January 25th meeting, artists are currently being consulted to have their sculptures remain in place until August of 2021, which is an extension from the normal timeframe of April to April each year, but it would provide a full year of public display for those sculptures. The future of the Arts Alive program itself will be moved forward to be discussed with the incoming Public Arts Advisory Committee and Arts Laureate, with recommendations brought forward to Council as part of their annual work plan and part of the newly installed terms of reference for that committee. And lastly, the public arts policy is the outgoing Arts Laureate and outgoing Public Arts Advisory Committee had started a review process of the district's public art policy just prior to the pandemic shutdown earlier in 2020. And their feedback will be provided to the incoming committee members and incoming Arts Laureate to kind of support that bridge of information sharing as we move forward. So the report is presented here for information, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meikle. And I know I had the chance to speak with Ms. Adams, the now past Arts Laureate as of the end of last year, but just to express my appreciation on behalf of Council for all the work that she's done over many years, taking an idea from scratch and building up a lot. And it's been really quite phenomenal when you look at what's been done over the last multiple years. So we're looking forward to what's next as well, of course, but I think this is very helpful to have this summary. Are there any questions of Mr. Meikle? And I'll take comments as well if people wish. Don't see any. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you. Sorry.
And then Councillor Braithwaite after you.
Mr. Meikle, through you, Mayor, to Mr. Meikle, thank you very much for the report. And it has been a remarkable program. And I really appreciate the support you've provided as a staff member at Parks and Rec. And also, I really appreciate the report in detail. And I think really it has been a project that has brought a lot of pleasure to our community. And certainly, and you know, the committee has worked very hard together as well with the Arts Laureate. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. Yeah, I would reiterate Councillor Green's words. I think that it's a wonderful legacy that our past Arts Laureate has left for our community. And I think it's something that she should be very proud of. I know I'm very proud of it, that we're able to get this program up and running within the community. I do have a question of Mr. Meikle, and that is in the package on page 6 of the package, which I think is the last page before Ms. Adams' letter. Item number 3 on that page, there's 5 items that it says 5 areas to work on. Number 3, it says include the value of the permanent art collection in Oak Bay assets, compile evaluations. And I seem to remember last year that we actually had those pieces of artwork that we own within the community in our financial report with a value beside them. So I'm assuming that that is something that has been done, but I was wondering if perhaps I'm not sure if Mr. Payne's on the line or if we can find out that just as a request, because I think that is very important that we do have an understanding of what those public arts assets are, and that they should be included in our financial report.
Sure, and if Mr. Meikle can answer, that's great. If not, I don't know if Mr. Payne is joining us tonight. So perhaps Mr. Meikle, if you can, that would be great. If not, well, if Mr. Payne is online as well, you can jump in at any time, of course.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. My understanding is that, yes, we do have that information and that it can be presented. We generally have all of the what I would call formal appraisals of those pieces of artwork, of those sculptures, and those will be or can be included into the financial report.
Okay, thank you. I thank you, and I believe they're in the annual report coming in. So, but we will just
Yeah.
take that away. Mr. Payne is not on the call this evening, so
Yeah.
we can't answer that for. Yep.
I think it is. I think that must be where I saw it. Merit is in the annual report.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Any Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to clarify that Mr. Payne did tell us last year it was included in the annual report as a report out on art, but the art itself, the art collection itself is not part of the financial presentation as a district asset per se. So that was what he said last year. So that's when we'll get the report out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for that clarification. Any other questions? I'll just take a motion to receive then.
I'll move receipts.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Got a couple of hands thrown up there for that. So if there are any other discussion? Not seeing any, I will call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again to Barbara Adams. Next up on the agenda, we have the requesting endorsement for Capital Regional Draft Solid Waste Management Plan. The point here is to receive it, but also to endorse it. And if there's anything that people see here that they feel should be go back as a message as a council, you can. This is a chance to do that. You can also, if at any time, if you see something later and you wish to raise it with me and to raise it at the table with the CRD, I'm happy to do that as well. But there's more strength if it comes as a resolution from council. So with that, I will hand this over to now. I'm not sure who's going to be taking this. Is Mr. Rennick? Are you doing a quick introduction of this item? Ms. Varela, I'm not sure who's taking.
Thank you,
Oh, it is Mr.
Chair. I
Rennick.
apologize for the delay trying to get unmuted. It's actually Mr. Brozick who will be speaking to this matter.
Oh, and I apologize, just as we go here, I didn't check in with Ms. Williams, who usually flags me if there is, but Ms. Williams, is there any people who raised their hands or called to speak to the last item?
Hi, Your Worship. No, we haven't had any public participation for the last item.
Okay, thank you. So again, this one is also subject to public input. So if anybody from the public wishes to speak on this item, I will call for public input before we go to the question. So maybe Ms. Williams, you can put that request, the dial-in information up on the screen. I can see everyone if that's up on the screen. So you can leave it there and I can see all members of council when that's up. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Rennick. My apologies for interrupting. Mr. Rennick, you are back on mute again, probably wisely. There we go. Thank you. Welcome back.
I'm sorry, Your Worship. It is Mr. Brozick who will be speaking to this item.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you. And welcome, Mr. Brozick, our Manager of Public Works. Mr. Brozick, welcome. I did see his name. If you are speaking, Mr. Brozick, you are still muted. We cannot hear you. Oh, there you are. We can see you, but we cannot hear you. You are not muted, so it may just be a glitch on the computer itself. If you can hear me, we were able to see you. We know you're connected. You're showing as connected, and you're showing as unmuted. It just wouldn't be a video meeting if we didn't have something go wrong in the course of it. So.
Hello, Mr. Brozick, this is Selena. If you're having problems with your microphone on your laptop, the number to dial in is on the screen, and perhaps you could use your phone to dial in and speak to council.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. That would be completely adequate and sufficient if you're able to do that, Mr. Brozick.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, hello, Mr. Brozek. We can hear you now.
Hello. Oh my gosh,
Welcome.
I'm so sorry about that. I have been a little bit of a technical difficulty there. Can you hear me?
We can. The microphone is very clear for your voice. It's also clear for the pages turning. So
Okay,
just
sorry about that.
don't turn them not to turn them too loud. And yes, welcome on this item. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So in October 2020, the CRD board directed their staff to proceed with the second phase of consultation for their solid waste management plan. So you might ask, how did they get to this point? Well, I'll give a little brief synopsis of what's happened so far. In March 2011, the CRD board passed a motion to undertake the process to update the CRD's 1995 solid waste management plan. It's a plan which really should be upgraded every 5 years or every 10 years. So in 2012, the Public and Technical Advisory Committee was formed through to 2015, of which there were numerous reports and options that were looked at. The process was put on hold from 2015 to 2017 and was restarted again in 2018. From that point until now, the creation of the draft plan, there's been a lot of public consultation, including a media launch event, public open houses, stakeholder meetings, and extensive social media outreach. In the consultation process, the district has received a letter inviting the district to be part of the consultation process. It outlines a plan on how the region intends to manage solid waste in the future. There are a number of regional wide goals and targets. And from a municipal perspective, the District of Oak Bay can continue to work with the regional district, with municipal partners to help support the regional goals. And coming into 2021 here, staff's work plan is intending to bring forward a report to council reviewing service levels of solid waste management in Oak Bay. The process of the report will be to provide baseline understanding for solid waste services, followed with discussion about our current programs and level of service and potential changes that might be implemented to better support the region's solid waste management plan. Which brings us to the recommended resolution that the memorandum authored by the Director of Engineering and Public Works dated February 8th, 2021 be received, and that the solid waste management plan be endorsed and a letter sent to the CRD thanking them for the opportunity to provide input and advising them of council's endorsement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brozek, and much appreciate the details. Just go back to council at this point. If anybody has any questions of Councillor Ney with her hand up. And then Councillor Patterson.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the overview there, Mr. Brozak. One of the questions I get asked repeatedly in the community based on the way we're dealing with managing waste is, why is it that we don't have a provision for soft plastics through the municipality? People never know what to do with that. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that. And I couldn't find anything here in this report either.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Ney. Mr. Brozek, perhaps you could address how we're dealing with that and how the CRD is might be looking at that in the longer term.
Yeah, I'm sure the CRD is actively taking a look at all the different plastics. One of the things is that there are so many different types of plastics out there, and it's really driven by what the BC Materials Association of BC, what they accept and when there's markets for it. So that's really a huge question, and I'm not really sure of the answer.
Oh, can you point out that just the fact that most soft plastics are droppable at the yard at this time? I think that's an important thing for people to know.
Yes, most plastics are, most soft plastics. the best would be to go on to the recycling websites from Oak Bay here and see what we do accept. I don't have that in front of me right this instant.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Nay. Oh, you're muted, Councillor Nay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brozak. I know the plastics issue has become confusing because, as you say, there's so many different kinds and it's hard, not easy to distinguish, and some of them are easier to recycle and it's complicated. I do appreciate that. And I notice with people, they're just kind of often just getting fed up and saying there's really no point. But can I just ask, just so that, because we're in the public arena here, if you could speak to this, why is it in Oak Bay that, we recycle numerous things, but we don't recycle at the curbside? We don't do the soft plastic. If you could just speak to that, why people have to, package all their soft plastics and come up to the municipal yard to recycle that one. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Nay. Mr. Brozak, who determines and what goes in is allowed in the blue bins and the curbside pickup?
So curbside pickup, that is done through Mterra Environmental, and they follow what Recycling BC wants them to actually pick up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brozak. Councillor Nay.
Okay, I guess that's it. So if somebody asks me, is there ever any opportunity then for curbside pickup to include soft plastics, Mr. Brozak? What would you say to that? Please, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nay. Mr. Brozak.
That is something that I'm going to have to look into and get back to you on that. I will see what the difference between the plastics at the yard and the plastics in the blue box are.
Thank you
so
very
I can check into that for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Nay. I have Councillor Patterson, Zelka, Green, and then Appleton. In that order, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through
and
you.
then Braithwaite. Sorry,
and
I interrupted.
Through you to Mr. Brozak. Thank you for this report, Mr. Brozak. I think clearly it shows the importance of how we deal with solid waste and really the impact that we all make in contributing to this. What I am wondering is, I know that when we got the report out on the organics program, there was very good information, and it could be, I could calculate how many kilograms per person of the organics was being contributed to the landfill. But on this, I noticed the objective is to decrease from the 380 kilograms per person to 250 kilograms per person. And so my question is, do we have a feel for where we are right now as a standard for Oak Bay? What are we producing on a per person basis in contributing in the overall solid waste? And then perhaps what staff might be recommending on a go-forward basis for monitoring and reporting out on how we are doing perhaps against those measurements.
Sure. And I don't know, Mr. Brozak, if you know, does the CRD break out or do we break out the total amounts? I guess we know the total amount by weight for the year and we can work it out on a per capita basis. Is that how we would do it?
We could do that definitely for the solid waste. Yes. When it comes to the recycling at curbside, that would have to be done with the CRD.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So it is just then, Mayor, again, just as a follow. So then it is possible to determine within at least the realm of where we stand at the start of, say, if we go ahead with this and started it today and move forward, how we are doing as a district on reduction.
Mr. Brozick, I think we'd have to probably give direction to come back with that kind of reporting. Mr. Brozick, I don't want to put you on the spot here in terms of what's involved in doing that. So, but it is something that we could get that information if we desired it. Is that correct?
It's something we could do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you very much for mentioning that. That was what I was getting to. I'm wondering if it needs a resolution of council that we would ask for that kind of reporting in the program, or if staff would be considering that in their overall monitoring of it. So thank you for that.
So it probably is worth, in the discussion we have with the annual report, just what information we want in there is probably the appropriate place for it. I'm just going to throw out there, having sat at the table at the CRD for these conversations, this number is a really interesting one in that it doesn't capture a lot of information. So things like apartment buildings and things that use private collectors don't get captured in this number. And it's quite an aspirational number. I will say that was the big discussion that was had around the table. Most of the low-hanging work, in terms of getting rid of organics, getting rid of recyclables, paper, et cetera, out of that waste stream have been done. The diversion of construction waste is underway. They're going to see, they're going to find it difficult to get to that number. I think that was the results from the staff, but it's an aspirational goal, and I think it's very possible as we get into a better waste management stream overall. But it is a regional approach to it, as we can inform and manage things a bit locally, but it's really a regional number that probably has to be looked at. So I just want to put a bit of caution there in terms of asking for too much on that, because at the end of the day, the regional number is the big one, and it's hard to get the full picture even then. Anything else, Councillor Patterson?
No, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Zelka, Green, Appleton, and Braithwaite.
Thank you, Chair. Question for you through to staff. A two-part question. One has to do with, I guess, the definition of solid waste appears to include recyclables, compostable materials, and garbage from homes, businesses, institutions, and construction demolition sites. Let me stop there. Is that true?
Yes, it's not liquid waste, and liquid waste is treated now at a pump station in Esquimalt. So yes, it's not liquid waste; it's everything else, basically.
Everything else. So I very much appreciate the aspirational aspects. However, we just went live with a yard waste diversion program into the green bin, which will hopefully increase our quote solid waste with respect to compostables, and that's a good thing. I'm wondering, are we going to be penalized some way if we use the green bin more than it's being used today?
Sure, I can probably answer that, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Brozick. This is measuring solid waste coming into the Heartland landfill. So while that is solid waste, it's a different stream, so it's not counted as part of that piece. So this is things that end up in the landfill that they're trying to cut down.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. So when we do get a per capita waste number presented to us in the annual plan or wherever it's going to be presented on a per yearly basis, it would be useful to have the two streams separated so that we know one which is bad and another which is good in terms of one we want to see go up, another one we want to see go down. Please. So the second question then is, while we have some good aspirational numbers, we also have some realistic numbers being presented in the plan. Will there be any penalties if we do not meet the realistic numbers, or what is going to get us to this place of these realistic numbers of 250 kilograms per person by 2030, for example, and then of course the aspirational one being 125 kilograms per capita per year?
Mr. Brozick, in this plan, is there any penalties described in here for municipalities, individuals, or other for not meeting certain targets?
Not that I know of. This plan is developed by the CRD, and they would come to council if council would want and could do a presentation and answer more questions specifically to these types of issues that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Brozak. Mr. Zelka, anything? Councillor Zelka, anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually, because this stream, affects every resident in Oak Bay and is tied in intimately with our carbon footprint, is tied in intimately with the environmental aspects. I would love more information about this, and if CRD is willing to present, I'm hoping there's a way that can be arranged. Let me just put that out there as a suggestion and for the rest of council to consider. But what I would like to know is what is specifically being proposed, or I guess, well, if staff can't answer right now, then maybe if the CRD could come in and tell us what's specifically being proposed to get us to these realistic and aspirational targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zelka. I don't think staff's in a position to answer that, but I'll let Mr. Brozak jump in if he wishes. But that's the intention of this 82-page report, is to try and map out as best they can how they're going to get there, everything from the housing waste to et cetera. I think I'm not sure if it's in this. I read this at the CRD.
Yeah.
Oh, am I? No, yeah, I'm not sure if but there's aspects here as well that probably aren't in the plan in terms of having a bit more control, and that's not currently possible. So in terms of some of the multifamily and other commercial dispositions, which don't always go into Heartland, they often get distributed to other landfills that will take it more cheaply. And so they don't have the same level of control about controlling what goes into the waste stream.
Okay.
So that's probably the easiest way.
One last question, if I may, related to that then.
Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you so much. If I remember correctly, and I haven't paid that much attention to so closely in the last year, but maybe the staff can remind me. We appear to have 3 trucks that come at garbage pickup day, or I call it solid waste pickup day, excuse me, an Mterra vehicle, a GFL environmental vehicle, and I guess what I would refer to as an Oak Bay garbage truck. Let me stop there. Is that true?
Mr. Brozak?
Yes. So we have 3 different trucks which would be coming around. Yes, one would be for the organics, which is under contract with Oak Bay. One would be for the garbage truck, which picks up the garbage waste, which is operated and owned by the District of Oak Bay. And then it's the recycling, which is operated by Mterra, and the CRD is in control of that truck and those individuals picking it up. Mm-hmm. So there are the 3 different areas.
Excellent. Thank you. So if I understand correctly, if the Oak Bay garbage truck, which is the sort of non-recyclable, non-compostable stuff, we really want to get that reduced. The Mterra aspects in terms of recyclables, we know that a lot of the recycling ends up in unfortunately, in the landfill, because it's not necessarily high value, or they can't find a market for it. So we definitely want to see that reduced, or find a market for it. For example, glass products. I understand there's a market for that, but unfortunately glass is being reused less. So it really is, it's only the outputs of those 2 trucks we're hoping to reduce. I just want to confirm that from staff.
Mr. Brozak?
Yes, pretty much. The products which are going to Heartland is what they want to reduce, largely to ensure that there is a place for garbage to go in the future, and that the Heartland landfill is around for many years to come.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Councillor Green, then Appleton, then Braithwaite.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Brozak, thank you for being here to speak to the report. One of the things I was encouraged about was that they will continue to sustain Heartland. I recall it's a well-run, well-managed facility. And this leads me to one question, and I can't remember, but there was a solid waste advisory committee at the CRD level. I just wondered, does Oak Bay have a council liaison to that committee, or do we have a voice on that committee if it still exists? And I couldn't recall if it did. That was one question. And then the other one was just to comment on the letter, which I had to smile at, addressed to Mr. Lou Varela. So I'm hoping that Mr. Lapham understands that Mr. Varela is actually not Mr. Varela. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green. I know he knows that, so that must have just been, it's kind of a little typo. Mr. Brozick, do you have an answer for Councillor Green's first question?
Dan Haran has been going to some meetings. I'm not sure exactly which solid waste meetings he's been going to.
And then I can answer the other. I can answer maybe the other half of that, because it's a technical advisory committee, not a. There are some counselors on there, but it's largely made up of technical advisors. So that might be the one. There's no council liaison from Oakby attached to that one. I know that. Councillor Green, go ahead, David, Director, Mr. Brozick.
Sorry. It used to be made up of council representatives, so that has changed then, I guess.
Yeah, this is a technical advisory.
So the old committee doesn't exist anymore.
There is a committee of the board that has it has responsibility for this. In the last shuffle of committees, I can't remember what it's called now, but environmental, I think, is the piece. So that's the one that oversees this from the political standpoint. But I think the other committee is more made up of the technical advice.
And do we have representation on the environmental committee? Do you know?
No, it's a subcommittee of the board, so it's not made up of councillors. It's made up of members of the board.
I'm just thinking. I sat on. We called it SWAC then, which is not a very nice acronym, but I sat on it for North Saanich, and it was a really wonderful committee. It did a lot of work in this whole area, and the voices of the individual communities were really valuable at that table. So that's just a comment, but I do appreciate the report, and thank you very much, Mr. Brozick.
Sure, and Councillor Green, I will look into what those committees are made up of. I just don't know the top of my head if there's what council and what is technical.
And if there is one that has council representation, I would encourage Oakby to be involved. I think we have an important voice.
Yeah, thank you. And I've just, sorry, Mr. Brozick, a lot of these questions do relate to CRD type activities, since this is where whose product this is. So I'm trying to help. You're put on the spot a little bit here. So apologies for that, but we'll try and get as many questions answered as we can. Councillor Appleton and then Councillor Braithwaite. And then, yeah. Oh, Ms. Varela, Ms. Varela, did you have your hand up as well? Can I just, usually if the CAO jumps in, I try and give her a chance to speak. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Mr. Brozick for being here, because this is Mr. Haran's report, and it really is about bringing the plan forward that includes the targets, those aspirational targets, and the strategies you referred to, and linking that to the long-term sustainability of the Heartland site. Beyond that, for the district level, as part of the 2021 work plan, staff is bringing you back a report, and this is certainly a topic that everyone is passionate about. That will be about reviewing service levels for solid waste management, specifically in Oak Bay. And we'll provide you with a baseline of understanding, and we'll talk about changes that could better support the region's overall plan that's before you tonight. So certainly it is a topic that everyone's passionate about. Mr. Brozick might not have the answers to a lot of the questions you're asking, certainly when you're into the CRD realm and things like that. But I know Mr. Haran and staff are working on that report. And if council has additional questions that are outside of the scope of what's before you tonight, it would be great if you sent those questions or topics over to staff so we could include that in that report that will be forthcoming. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Ms. Varela. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. But this might now be redundant given what the CAO just said. I feel like maybe I'm asking a question that's out of bounds, but this may not be a question for Mr. Brozick because he may not be as entrained in the subject, but it might be question for you, Your Worship. Just in a couple of different occasions in the report, it does mention the prospective organics processing facility that's slated to be built at Heartland, or the desire to build that facility at Heartland, but it doesn't provide any kind of timeline on it. It basically just says future, sort of in brackets. And we may not have more information, but just for my own interest, to be interested to hear sort of what the timeline is for the Heartland organics facility.
Sure, and I don't have a lot of information. They're currently evaluating options for that at the CRD. There's also some research going into integrated waste, resource waste management, and that would be sort of incinerator type technologies if they can move some of that. And and of course there's the solid waste piece, which is coming out of the sewage treatment plant, and those residual solids that are being considered as possibly as the fuel source or something to facilitate. So there's a lot of moving pieces on that, but there's a general recognition that we can't have things being trucked all over the island or to the mainland, and so there's a desire to do that on the site, but the exact scope of that and nature of it is not yet determined. Anything else, Councillor Appleton?
Well, thank you for that. I just wanted to mention, just regarding the conversation about the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, I just note that it is in the CRD report on page 6, talking about the current composition of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. It's got a bunch of different stakeholders and reps on it, but not municipal. There are engineering staff on there, but not councillors. So just
yeah, I had a quick look at it online, but I don't see that. I don't recognize any of the names, so I know they're not municipal, but I don't know what their background is. So thank you for finding that, Councillor Appleton, in the report. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, being last, most of my questions have been answered, but I will make just one comment, perhaps from the reports, because I found it interesting, and I'm wondering if the CRD will be reporting back on this. And in the report, it did say that 1.3% of waste landfill came from cruise ships in 2019. So being that COVID hit and we had no cruise ships to speak of in 2020, and we won't be having any in 2021, it'll be interesting to see what a difference that makes to the overall numbers, and how the CRD will report back on that. So that was just my comment.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. It is always, these sort of reports are always fascinating. I found the curbside residential at only a quarter of the total fairly remarkable. You'd think that they would make up, the majority of that waste stream, but it's certainly not the case. So, any other? There's two pieces here. Obviously, the first part is easy in terms of being received. The second motion to being endorsed is also fairly straightforward, except if there's any additional motions that people wish to make as a body to go back to the CRD, this would be the opportunity to do so. As I said, otherwise, if there isn't, people can always address me one-on-one, and I can raise points at those meetings. But Councillor Green, go ahead.
I can make a motion on receiving the report for information.
Sure, let's deal with that first. Moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That passes. And the second part. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
All right, I'll move the second part of the motion to endorse the waste management plan. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak to that motion? And I should probably go to the public as well before I go too far on this, but go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, will this, if we endorse this, is this our last opportunity to share information or to get information about this? Is this a 5-year plan? Is this a 10-year plan? When will it be coming back to Oak Bay for update and renewal next time? We're in the middle of some technological changes, and many new programs are out there. Later on, we may want to do some other aspects of our environmental program that may impact this stream of waste. So I wanted to ask when would be our next kick at the can of this sort of this regional waste management plan, please?
Sure, I will do my best to answer that, and I'll go to staff to see if I'm wrong. Because my understanding is this is generally a 10-year plan. It's not, it doesn't come around more often than that. There's a lot of build that goes into it once it's endorsed by the CRD board, and then they move it forward. But so that's the answer on the CRD side, I think, in terms of input. But I don't know if anybody on our staff is more details. Ms. Varela, you touched on, we're looking at this from Oak Bay's perspective in terms of our solid waste piece. If maybe perhaps you or Mr. Brozak could touch base on that as well, timelines on that process.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the CRD, this is actually a second phase of the consultation that began in 2019 on this plan. The proceedings and outcomes from this consultation will be documented into a phase 2 summary report and reported back to both the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and the CRD board. Then those, after that consultation, the CRD incorporates those results into the final plan. So this really is an opportunity now, as per the letter Mr. Lapham provided, to give our municipality an opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. Staff can also reach out to see if council needed an additional piece of information, or if you had specific questions to provide. I can liaise with Mr. Lapham on that as well.
Okay, Councillor Zelka, anything else?
Thank you, Chair. One sort of one more thing. The plan includes things such as building a recycling solid waste facility. Ordis has some plans for that. It sounds like we have found another place to put that stream of materials. I just wanted to know, I'm all for regional participation in regional goals, but Oak Bay is, and we only get one vote on the whole CRD. Would we be expected to participate in those items that were not that our streams of waste will not be going into? I just wanted to know how will they be apportioning the cost of certain things?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So I can ask it both generally and specifically, Councillor Zelka. As a general rule, all services that are tied to the municipalities that participate in those services. So, for instance, the Peninsula wastewater is paid for by the Peninsula municipalities. The core area liquid waste treatment is paid for only by the core area that use that service. The residuals treatment is the same. The residuals treatment is interesting because it currently only treats the core treatment piece, but is being looked at for addressing the peninsula and other wastewater residuals as well. And as I said, might at some point be used internally to help as a fuel source for some of the other potential uses on the site. But in the broad scheme of things, we only pay for the services that we actually use for the CRD. Thank you. Okay, got a thumbs up for that. Okay, any other discussion on this? Not seeing any, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We're moving on to item number 8.2. This is Mr. Rennick. Sorry, Mr. Rennick, I reached you at the wrong time last time on traffic control orders. We're going to deal with the first few, and then I'm going to ask, and then I believe Councillor Patterson wishes to recuse for the last one. So,
Mayor, if I could just, yes, I do intend to recuse myself for the last. I am a resident on the street, so I'll recuse. I will leave the meeting, and Miss Williams and I have coordinated so that she will contact me, and I'll come back into the meeting once it's concluded. Thank you.
Sounds good. So we'll deal with the first block of, sorry, I did not call for public input, although I did call for it. I didn't ask if there was anybody there. It's not too late to take some of that public input. Ms. Williams, did anybody call in or raise their hands on the last item?
No, Your Worship, no callers.
Okay, I'm being saved from my own memory loss by the lack of people calling in. I'm not surprised we're not getting lots of calls in on that, but still good to ask. And the same thing will happen on this one. So, Mr. Rennick, why don't you actually, perhaps just given the brevity I expect this to take, Ms. Williams, could you put the phone numbers back up on the screen so that if anybody wishes to call in on any of these traffic control orders that we're considering here, that they be they can call in at that time. They should call in now if they want to speak to any of these items. So go ahead, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Chair. The traffic control orders that are here for council consideration tonight are fairly routine matters. I believe this batch is 5 stop signs on small residential streets, as well as a stretch of 2-hour parking. These traffic control orders were presented to Committee of the Whole in January, and at that time, Committee of the Whole had recommended to council that they be adopted. And I'd be happy to take any questions from council on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Are there any questions of council? Not seeing any. Ms. Williams, has anybody called into this meeting to address us on this item?
No callers at this time, Your Worship.
Okay, so we'll come back to this table. We just need a motion to approve this block then, and we can separate them if we need to. Go ahead. Is that moved and seconded by Councillor Braithwaite and Appleton? Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion on these items? Not seeing any. I'm happy to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. You've already explained the reason why, Councillor Patterson, so why don't you recuse yourself from the meeting at this point? Thank you, and Ms. Williams will call you back in when we're done. So next up is the stop sign on Woodlawn Crescent. I don't believe we need an additional overview of this, Mr. Rennick. I'll take any questions if there are any. Ms. Williams, are there any members of the public that have called in on this item that wish to speak?
No members of the public, Your Worship.
Okay, I'm going to give that just a couple more seconds in case. Not seeing any, we'll come back to this table then. All those, any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That passes. Ms. Williams, would you please contact Councillor Patterson and bring her back into the meeting?
I've done that. She should be returning, Your Worship.
Very good. Thank you very much. And as she's coming back, for those watching, if anybody wishes to call in and talk to us about the derelict and abandoned vessels on the next item on the agenda, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, the numbers are on the screen and you can see them there. You can also, if you're on Zoom, hit the under reactions, raise the click reactions, and then click the raise hand button to inform our staff that you wish to speak. So at this time, we'll come back here to Ms. Rella. I believe, are you giving a quick overview of this item?
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the report before council is to recommend that you consider supporting an application that's being led by the Songhees Nation for $3.5 million in funding from the province's Clean Waters Initiative Fund. And the purpose of this is to remove derelict vessels and marine debris from the Salish Sea, including the waters around the capital region. The Songhees Nation is proposing to work with a consortium of local First Nations and a variety of stakeholders to use $3.5 million to clean up our waters. So we're here tonight asking for your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rella. Are there any questions of Ms. Rella on this item? Not seeing any hands up. So Ms. Williams, are there any call-in or hands raised from the public on this item?
No callers, Your Worship.
Okay. And sorry, I just saw the chat, so I thought I would just check it real quickly. There's no messages there. So with that, we're back to this table. Is there any other discussion on this item? Oh, Councillor Green. Just need to unmute Councillor Green.
My apologies. Is there a motion on the table? Otherwise, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, no, there's no motion yet on the table.
Okay.
You can make a motion.
All right, I'll move the staff recommendation, please.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Very good. Any other discussion on this? I just want to express my appreciation to Mr. Jones, Warren Jones, who used to be an employee and is still helping out on odds and ends. This was his file when he worked here, and he's followed up on it to help see this happen. And also, I just want to let everybody here know that this has the support of the people who are all doing the active cleanup on their own time and their own volunteer hours currently in Cadbro Bay. John Rowe, all those people. So I think it'll be really good to have an active agency locally that we can draw on to address our derelict boats. So I'm very appreciative of this happening. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. The next items under bylaws and permits. We won't be going out to the public on these as we've already talked about them at the committee meeting. First up is Advisory Design Panel 2740 Beach Drive. Ms. Jensen, we have the report in front of us. Do you want to give a quick overview?
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council may remember, this application was considered at the December 14th Committee of the Whole meeting, where the applicant was proposing construction of a new home and 2 accessory buildings on the property at 2740 Beach Drive. At that time, they were also requesting a variance to the interior side lot line for the northerly accessory building. Upon review, Council provided a resolution at their January 11th meeting denying the requested variance and asking staff to work with the applicant to site the accessory building so that no variances would be required. The proposal in front of Council this evening includes revisions such that no variances are required for the proposed construction. Primarily, the accessory building has been sited further into the site and now meets all zoning bylaw setback requirements. Some minor modifications have been made to the design of that one accessory building, but the overall design is still within the greater context of the proposed new home. No other changes are proposed for the overall siting and design of the site and the proposed buildings. As presented at the December meeting, the house is proposed to be sited in the central portion of the property where it would occupy a footprint similar to the existing home. The applicant is still proposing construction of a contemporary style home that utilizes glazing, stucco cladding, and local materials such as local stone and red cedar. Staff review of the application suggests that the revised siting of the accessory building and the overall design of the buildings is in compliance with the Uplands Design Guidelines, and the overall siting and design is considered supportable. That is consistent with the recommendation of the design panel, who did provide support for the siting and design component of the application. And with that, the application for siting and design is ready for Council consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. Are there any questions by Council of staff? Not seeing any, so can I have a motion? Go ahead, Councillor. Councillor, is that Green? Your hand is up. Did you wish to speak or just to make the motion?
I'm sorry, this muting and unmuting is so awkward. I apologize.
It is.
I'm happy to make the motion, and that would be option 1 to approve this application. And then I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if I may. Thanks.
I saw a couple of hands up, so we'll take it as moved and seconded, and you can go ahead and speak, Councillor Green.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank planning staff, first of all, for going back to the drawing board on this one after we denied it in December. I think it demonstrates clearly that it isn't always a bad thing to say no, that saying no can bring new action and more innovation, in fact. And I know that it's hard to say no at the time, but I was really I was very impressed with Council's commitment on this one, and certainly the advisory design panel as well, making their recommendations. So thank you very much, Ms. Jensen, for working with, through you, Mayor, for working with the applicant, because I think it sends a message, and that is that we are reasonable, but we have expectations around our planning areas and our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to say I'm very pleased to see that there's 15 new trees will be planted as part of this development, and definitely will be voting in favor of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Don't see any other hands up at this time, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Councillor Green, you still have a hand up piece there. I just assume that's still left over, so we'll move on. Any new business at this time? Not seeing any. We'll just go to correspondence from other governments or agencies. We have this letter from the District of Saanich on $10 a day childcare plan.
Mayor, it's Councillor Patterson. If I could just go back to new business for a minute.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to report out that this past week, the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice had a meeting, and
Councillor Patterson,
yes,
under the new procedures bylaw, we're doing those reports at committee of the whole, so we'll do that next week. Because this is just for any like notices of motion, things of that nature.
I apologize, Mayor.
No, it's a brand new procedures bylaw. If we didn't get it mixed up a few times, we wouldn't be human. So thank you for that. Any other? Okay, I'll leave that open for a moment. Not seeing any, so we'll go to the correspondence from other governments or agencies. We have District of Saanich $10 a day child care plan. Ms. Williams, is there anything you wish to add to this?
Your Worship, just to provide some background, that in 2014, the District Council did provide endorsement of the $10 a day childcare program. At this time, it would appear that the request before you was asking for a motion to encourage the regional district to make movement on it, so slightly different, but just for background, we have provided endorsement on this previously.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Are there other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite. I see your hand up.
I was just going to move the recommendation that we receive it for information.
It's moved. Is there seconded? Thank you. Any discussion on that? Councillor Braithwaite, your hand is still up. Did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think to receive it for information, since as Ms. Williams has said, we have supported it in the past. I think that I'm not sure why this would go to the CRD. I think it's better to go to UBCM probably. So I think receiving this for information at this time would be the correct thing to do.
Sorry, Councillor Zelka, you had your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say the same thing. So I support the motion to receive for information. Thank you.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton. And then Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm asking a question. I'm not actually sure who it's directed to, but just procedurally, though I understand the previous endorsement of the concept, I'm just wondering whether or not there's any, given that we're being directly asked for support at this time, is there any negative impact to us supporting a joint motion to the CRD at this point, even though we have supported in the past? Is there any harm to supporting what Saanich is asking us at this stage of the game?
I'm not sure who to direct that question to. It's not, I guess the short answer is no, there's never any harm in pieces. It's unusual to make a motion to another body that doesn't have jurisdiction, to ask them to make a motion to lobby the government. I think that's what struck me odd about this one. What was passed, I think, in 2014 was a support for the group that was advocating for $10 a day childcare. And I think what else has changed is the province has already indicated they're moving down that path at this point. So I'm not sure what the, if council wished to support this more fulsomely, perhaps, I'm not sure what, I struggled with this one as well, Councillor Appleton, in terms of what the appropriate motion would be. They're asking for council motions to the CRD, but it's an unusual process, I'll say that, to have several councils sending motions back and forth to each other to send a motion to the CRD table where we sit as a joint body. It's an odd one, to be sure.
I guess thank you, Your Worship, and I guess I'm in support of what's trying to be accomplished here. I guess I'm just looking for the best way to accomplish what they're hoping for support for. So yeah, again, I guess I'm surprised it's not sort of immediately proceeding to UBCM at this stage of the game. But I guess I'm not necessarily opposed to the motion on the table. I guess I just would like to go on record as saying I appreciate what they're trying to accomplish by it.
If I can be of assistance on that, there could be a a motion to amend, if you wish, to express to the District of Saanich Council, reiterating our support for the intention behind that, and would support their bringing this through UBCM. Would be a possible way of doing that, if just based on what you said.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would make that motion. I would move that language conveying our support for the intent of the letter and the concept of $10 a day childcare, and also that that we would be in support of such a motion being brought forward to UBCM.
Okay, so that's an amendment motion at this point. So it's still to receive it, but also to add those pieces to it.
Thank
And I'll
you, Your
consider
Worship.
those as part of the same motion. So I saw that moved and seconded. So we're dealing with the amendment now to add that portion. Councillor Green, I had you in the speaking list, but it was to the main motion. Do you still wish to speak to the amendment put forward? There we go.
I was trying to
Welcome.
unmute Councillor Appleton, sorry. I actually want to just say that I agree with Councillor Appleton. I think the louder the voice and the more organized the voice on this issue is important. I don't think I'd want to let process deter us from putting our shoulders behind this kind of motion. I think we all know that the pandemic particularly has created incredible hardships, particularly for single family parents seeking and paying for childcare. And then if you combine that with job loss, which has been quite high across not only BC, but the country, I think anything we can do to support this kind of initiative is important. So thank you for the motion, and I will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Is there any other discussion? This is on the amendment. Seeing none, I will call the question then to amend the original motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. So the motion is now amended to receive and to send a letter back to Saanich as expressed. Is there any further discussion on that? I'm not seeing any, so I'm happy to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Any other items on this agenda item? Okay, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is adjournment, which I think we can
Move
always
adjournment.
appreciate. Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.